talk about Apple's new enemy or frenemy, Intel. Right. So Intel just effectively had an earnings call a couple of weeks ago, and they fell short of expectations, right? So which actually saw a drop in the stock price. But that's not really why I'm talking about this today. I think this is an opportunity for us to go into or back into Intel if we ever were into Intel. Now, whether it be now, whether in 6 months' time, it's up for discussion. It's up for also just looking at it. But I think they've got some feet in the right path. Let's say they walk in the right direction. Okay. So one thing's first, they move back to the olden days. Right. I think they've got a decent CEO now. I believe he's been working at Intel since he was 18. And he's just literally risen up the ranks, which I think commands biggest respects, especially nowadays, where 2 years in a job is considered very long already. Right? So that's
strawberries.
I know. Yeah. Hey, you and I are the same age, so I'm just saying.
Yeah, and I've quit jobs like every 2 years quite consistently.
So you're calling yourself a strawberry?
I shouldn't be throwing stones. Yeah.
Definitely. Right? So it fell 10%. And so the CEO is doing a good job. Right? And I think one thing to note here is that he's an engineer himself. He's really focused on chips. And it's shown with the new Intel chips popping out. Now, I know they've lost and will lose potential revenue from Apple because they moved away. Apple has moved to the M1 and the M1 Pros and whatever have you. But Intel is still good at what they do. And their latest processor actually has been outperforming other chips in its market. So I think that's a really good step in that direction. Most importantly, we know the issue now with the semiconductor crunch and all of that. And what Intel wants to do is actually build plants by 2024, 2025, so that they're making it their own and they have more supply and they have more of these plants to address the upcoming demand, which we all can see in EVs and almost everything, right? So now, clearly, InsurTech also will need these chips.
Yes.
So I think, with these sort of things, and then as they internalize this entire logistical process, they could increase their margin, and they should increase their margins in doing what they do best. So I see this as a 3-4-year-old play in terms of looking at Intel, looking at what they do. It is hardware. It is fundamental. It is effectively a really old company in that sense, and a giant at that. What do you guys think?
Who is Intel's biggest competitors?
I mean, I don't like new companies and I don't like old companies, so it's difficult. Yeah.
Who do you actually like, Anthony? I'm sorry.
Facebook. I like evil companies. We'll talk about that. Yeah. I think there's, it's difficult, right? So yes, 12 Gen chips, fantastic. But I don't know, and of course I think that compares to the new Apple M1 chips. I don't know how AMD is responding, right? So in that sense, we have seen Intel blow the tech lead. 3 years ago, I think you wouldn't have seen an AMD chip anywhere,
yes.
Right? All your laptops, they are all Intel processors. I was shopping for a laptop last week. It's quite even now, I would say. At least in the mid-market range that I'm shopping at, right? $1,000, $1,500 laptops. It's quite even between AMD and Intel 11 Gen chips. So I think they have blown the lead historically. Now it's trying to reclaim it. I don't know if it's doable in one generation and with a recent CEO change, right? And yes, great. They're moving into fabs back, which they sold off, I think, 20 years ago. Again, they're putting 20 billion in 3 years, which sounds like a nice big number until you hear that TSMC is, as CapEx going to build $100 billion worth, right? Yeah. So in terms of scale, it's starting up its fab again. In terms of the technology of the chips, there's a lot of people are doing their own chips now. So they have lost market share there. They have lost their technological lead in the more retail facing space. So I don't know if
so
this is enough to get it back.
I don't believe more people are doing more chips, right? It's the same people doing the chips, right? Okay, maybe
Apple. Who are Intel's biggest competitors?
Yeah, but that's a big one, right? And
Apple will be one.
Yeah. Exactly.
Nvidia and AMD, right? Those are the 3 big ones, right, guys?
Yeah, and I think Nvidia are doing their own chips for data centers.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
and I think what Ali Cloud said, we are doing our own chips for data centers. So I think it seems as if everybody's looking to design their own chips in a sense, right? Google's creating their own chips for their phones.
Yeah.
So, and all of these were, but potentially could have been Intel, right? Because they were the predominant one. And, if there's some fragmentation in the market, people want custom silicon. I think Twitter wants custom silicon. No, sorry, Square wants custom silicon for whatever reason. So, it's going to be, it's essentially custom made chips.
Okay. Yeah.
So they're going to say, I'm designing my own chip. I want it in a certain way because I'm going to put it in my device, and it's like M1 chips.
Yeah,
right?
it's going to work seamlessly with my product. Blah blah.
Yeah, it's works seamlessly. Blah blah blah. I can make a thinner device, whatever. So, if people are moving that direction, I mean, I think Intel has a long road ahead, and just to try to reclaim its previous position. And I think there's a bit, and that's where the market is pricing it, I would say.
How does Intel fare against
I think,
other
if you're buying
other
now,
chip manufacturers like AMD and Nvidia? Like, if you were to buy a laptop, would you buy Intel a laptop with an Intel chip, or a laptop with an Nvidia chip or AMD chip? Which would you prefer, actually?
Yeah.
You don't want to ask me that question, man. I'll buy a Mac.
Yeah, he's not useful in this situation. So look, I mean, I literally just bought a laptop yesterday, right? Fantastic logistics. When I was searching over the weekend, I was like, yeah, I definitely want an Intel, 11th gen i5 or i7. That's what I knew from my last purchase, right? 4 years ago. But I was like, but why can't I find this? It's just all AMD chips, for mid-market range. Are they really good? Then I went to Google, and performance-wise, it's actually really about the same on all metrics, with AMD coming in slightly better. So this is small sample, right? This is very retail chips, not necessarily indicative of their general performance, but I think they really have lost a bit of a lead there. Because 3 years ago, if you told me, if you tried to Google a comparison between AMD and Intel, you just wouldn't get anything.
No,
right?
absolutely. So
It's unanimous.
AMD, when I was growing up, which was, according to Anthony, dinosaur years ago now, which is,
because that's when I grew up.
And I built my first computer. I remember this. I was 15, 14. I bought an AMD chip because at that point in time, AMD and Intel were also like this. But then, in between, that was 2005, 2006, right? After that, in the early 10s and 12s, you couldn't see anything but an Intel chip everywhere. So I'd say they skyrocketed at that point in time. And now I am seeing a resurgence, right, in the form of AMD chips. And I think Apple perhaps made a good decision there. I guess we're talking about Apple now, right? When Apple chose to go back to Intel. So Apple went with Intel, then went to their chips again, and then went back to Intel, and now going back to their chips again. They perhaps are saying what you're trying to say. Use that custom silicon. The way that we want it to do is that we want to hold the IP, and we want to just give it to a fab company to fab it up and print it out, effectively print it out for me. And maybe Intel will, a couple of things that I see, right? Number one, Intel has to gain that space back. Clearly, they have done it before, so they can do it again. That's one thing that I'll say. They have a huge backing. And if they just turn out to be a fab company, that's still going to work for them. Right? So they effectively almost like a pivot.
Yeah, I mean, again, fab, they're going to be a really small player. It's still going to go to, and look, if they're still making their own chips and designing their own chips, I think any competitor that also wants to be in that space would, just as a matter of, competition, wouldn't let Intel do the fab, right?
Yeah.
So I think Intel's fab's biggest customer will still be Intel. It literally, is supply chain integration vertically. It helps them cut their cost structure. Fantastic, at the cost of huge capex upfront. But I mean, at this stage, without much more execution, and given that it's a company that has blown a lead, yes, they made a lead, but then they blew it. And to me, the blowing of the lead is a more recent one, and we should give greater weightage to that. So, yeah, yes, they have done it before, but they have also blown a lead before and been terrible. So, I think it's a difficult one to weigh.
Fair enough. So, to quickly sum up, I see that as a long-term play, but what you're also saying is that in the short term, before that long-term play, they could be losing a lot more and not even get to the plan of that long-term play. Right.
Yeah, and we don't know how the long-term play will pan out.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
it's risk. It's risk.